And then Chelsea, do you mind just making sure I'm in the frame? Because it's weird not being able to see out. Okay, welcome. Welcome to the first presentation of the 2022, part of the 2022 Nevada Wildfire Awareness Campaign. We're in Las Vegas right now at the Clark County Extension Office, University of Nevada, Reno Extension. Today's presentation is called Clean the Air, how you can help reduce ozone and wildfire smoke impacts. You're going to be hearing from Kevin MacDonald, Public Information Administrator from Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability, and Melissa Ramos, Manager of Advocacy and Clean Air from the American Lung Association in Nevada. Quickly before we begin, I want to kind of do a little poll and gauge some. Oh, I didn't realize that was up there. Do you mind launching that poll real quick? So if you just go to polls and then. Yeah, I'll just sorry, I'm not being. Okay, I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you guys wouldn't mind answering these questions. I'm going to minimize this so it's not covering everything. Got it. So this poll is just going to kind of gauge where you're at in your knowledge right now about these topics. And then while we're doing that, I'm going to quickly do a little bit of Zoom. This part will not be in the YouTube presentation. I'll cut this part out. Okay, I'm going to quickly go over a little bit of Zoom. I know we're all really familiar with it, having done everything remote for the past couple of years, but in case you're unaware, bottom left is your mute button. You can unmute it during the Q&A if you want to ask questions of our speakers directly, or you can type them in the chat. If you want to share your video during the Q&A, go ahead and turn that button on. To ask questions, if you just want to type a question, go ahead and direct it to questions for speakers in your chat, and you'll see when you go to ask a question, that option will pop up there, and that's going to go to us. And then if you want to change your view at any time, you can. If you want to look at the participants instead of the presentation, go for it. And then finally, if you'd like to leave, bottom right-hand corner is the leave the workshop. And because you guys aren't here in person to have this, to be able to view this poster just lets you know that extension programs are federally funded and are open to everyone. And then after the presentation, to continue your education to learn more about wildfire, visit our website, livingwithfire.com. Okay, Kevin, you ready?
I am ready. Okay,
so our first presentation of the evening is going to be about ozone. So I'm going to cue it up.
Thank you, Melissa. Megan, I'm so sorry.
I know, there's two N names.
Edit that in post as well. Thank you for joining me, everyone. My name is Kevin MacDonald. I am with the Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability, and want to talk a little bit about ozone as well as wildfire smoke impacts here in Clark County, because we deal with those on a fairly regular basis. So without further ado, a little bit of history about who we are. The Department of Environment and Sustainability, we're about 100 full-time employees. We're actually made up of 3 divisions. We have the Division of Air Quality, the Office of Sustainability, and the Desert Conservation Program. And I'll talk mostly about the Division of Air Quality because that's what we're going to be dealing with today. But sustainability, that's our newest division, and they are working toward identifying and promoting sustainability efforts for Clark County to help combat the effects of climate change. Air quality, we are the air permitting body for Clark County, meaning all the businesses in Clark County have to apply for and get approved for an air permit to operate in Clark County. That's anything from gas stations, construction companies, asphalt plants, and even casinos. And basically, if you have a boiler or emit pollutants in the air, you have to get a permit. Also construction sites, obviously. And in addition to being a permitting body, we also enforce compliance with those regulations through our compliance section. And it's important to note that we operate in an open and transparent manner. Outside of anything that's proprietary for businesses, all our documents, everything we do is perfectly transparent and open to the public. So our greatest challenge in Clark County is and has been for quite some time ozone. There are 6 criteria pollutants for which we monitor, which is mandated by the EPA. That's ozone, particulate matter, which is dust and smoke and soot, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and lead. And of all those criteria pollutants, ozone, which that's what it looks like, is our greatest challenge. It is an odorless and colorless gas. And when we talk about ozone, we often think of it as being good for us because up in the stratosphere, it will protect us from the sun's UV rays. And that's great. But here at the ground level, it can be harmful to breathe. So it's also created by a chemical reaction. It's when volatile organic compounds mix with oxides of nitrogen, they cook in the UV rays, and that creates ozone. So when we talk about volatile organic compounds, VOCs, think of anything that puts off a fume. So that could be gas, paint, chemicals, vegetation, like an orange, for example, puts off a VOC. I'm not saying oranges cause ozone, so that's not we don't want that to be the takeaway. But when those VOCs mix with the nitrogen oxides, which is anything that combusts, so we think about engines, industry, and so on, cooks in the sun, creates ozone. Now, if you remove one of those components, you can remove ozone. But we have a lot of sun, we have a lot of VOCs, a lot of NOx. And the harms, it can be harmful to breathe, especially if you have breathing sensitivities. So this chart here, this is tracking all our ozone days where we had concentrations of ozone exceed 70 parts per billion or more. That 70 parts per billion measurement, that is the current EPA standard for what's considered, anything above that is considered unhealthy, at least for sensitive groups and beyond. Now, when you look at this chart, this goes back to 2003, you can see that ozone is actually decreasing, not increasing. This is not to minimize the challenges we have with ozone, because we certainly still have that. But compared to where we were almost 20 years ago, we have made improvements. Part of that problem though is because here in Clark County, for example, we have 1.6 million registered vehicles. And we know vehicle emissions put off, they're a major contributor to ozone. And we've said before here in Clark County, if you remove all the vehicles here, you would remove the ozone problem. We would still have ozone, but we wouldn't have the exceedances like we do today. And I want to point out too that wildfire smoke can contribute to ozone formation as well. And I'll get more on that later. So when we talk about ozone, since a lot of it is around how we operate our cars, there are things that we as individuals can do to help reduce ozone. Don't idle your vehicle unnecessarily. One thing I like to tell people, especially during the summertime, if you want to help reduce ozone, instead of going through a drive-through, park your car and go inside and get your lunch, your Starbucks or whatever. Reduce your driving, use mass transit or carpool, fill up your gas tank after sunset. This is one of my favorite tips because if you think about that NOx plus VOC plus UV rays, when you fill up your gas tank, that puts off the fumes. So if you remove that during the day, you can help reduce ozone. Keeping your car well maintained helps because if your car is well maintained, it's burning fuel efficiently. And then outside of your vehicles, if you're using less gas powered landscaping equipment, and then turn off your lights and your electronics when out of use. Also, we'd like to say, this is a new one we're adding, if you're on the market for a new vehicle, look into electric vehicles or hybrids. So now, without further ado, we're getting into the wildfire smoke aspect of this. I mentioned that wildfire smoke can also influence ozone formation. And like ozone, we know that wildfire smoke is harmful to breathe. And even from hundreds of miles away, wildfire smoke can be an issue. We've seen that here in Clark County. I want to show you a couple images just to illustrate that. So this photo here, this was taken last August at 7:45 in the morning. This is one of our visibility cameras that is perched atop the M Resort, facing north. So that's, you're looking at the strip and the mountain in the background. A little bit hazy, you can tell there, because the mountain's a little bit obscured. Not surprising for that time of year. So that was August 11th at 7:45 a.m. Here's what it looked like on August 7th at 7:45 a.m. That was, for those who live down here, I guess probably in Reno as well, you know, that was when we had all that wildfire smoke blow in to the region on Friday night. And that's what we woke up to. That was in the 8 years I lived here in Clark County, that was the worst I had seen, because you go outside, not only could you see it, you could taste it, and you could smell it. So I want to go back to that chart we talked about when we talked about wildfires. In 4 of the past 5 years, wildfire smoke has influenced ozone formation here in Clark County. Now, what you're looking at here, those are the exceedance days, the days that ozone exceeded 70 parts per billion. And like I said, 4 of those 5 years, wildfire smoke influenced ozone. I bet you can't guess which year we didn't have any wildfires. In 2019, we only had 3 ozone seasons compared to the other 4 years. Again, wildfire is not the only reason we have ozone, but it certainly is a contributing factor. And that's one of the reasons why we issued our seasonal wildfire smoke advisory this year, alongside our seasonal ozone advisory. We already know that from April till the end of September that ozone is an issue. Wildfire smoke sadly has become our new normal. My boss hates it when I use that term, but that's the sad reality. So in addition to the advisory, we also issue the ozone advisories I mentioned. We keep you informed as best we can via our communication channels on days when we think that ozone or smoke or dust or whatever is going to be elevated. And the seasonal advisory gives us a little bit of cover there. What else we're doing right now is we've also commissioned a NOAA study to get a better sense of what components are making up the ozone here in Clark County. I'm talking about like right on the ground, so we can actually start learning more about, well, where is the ozone coming from? Is it vegetation? Is it man-made or whatever it may be? We're also tracking and supporting state and federal action around the transportation sector, such as Clean Cars Nevada. You've probably heard of that. We're also part of the county's Transportation Electrification Working Group, which strives to electrify Clark County's transportation system. And we're also making Clark County more sustainable, more resilient through our sustainability office through its initiative called All In Clark County. If you want to learn more about that, go to allinclarkcounty.com. So, how to protect yourself through this, to protect your health? A couple things you can do. On days when the ozone is going to be higher, limit outdoor exertion. Same thing with wildfires. Limit your outdoor exertion. Keep your windows and doors closed. Run your air conditioners. Change your air filters frequently. Schedule morning or evening activities, because that's when the pollutants are lower typically. And substitute less intense activities. Walk instead of jog, for example. And of course, whenever you're talking about your health, always consult your doctor physician first. And I'll also add that when it comes to gender reveal parties, please no fireworks in dry, hot conditions. That seems to be a problem. We don't need any more wildfires during California and other states. So we also encourage you to stay informed. I mentioned we're on social media. We're on social media there, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then if you go to enviroflash.com, you can get daily text or email, whatever you prefer. I also want to point out the air now. You can download it from I think the Google Play Store and iTunes or the Apple Store, and that's free. And that gives you right up to the minute real-time air quality information. And that graphic to the right, that's our website. It's desaqmonitoring.clarkcountynv.gov. That's quite a mouthful, forgive me. But what you're looking at there in that graphic, all those colored squares, that is our network of monitoring stations throughout Clark County. That's how we can tell what's happening in the air at any given moment. And they're color coded, so if it's green, that's good, yellow, moderate, anything above that is unhealthy. And we try to keep that as, want to keep that in the yellow at the absolute most. So one final point I want to make here is if you smell or see something for air quality, you can call our complaint line. You can reach us through the phone, email, or online. And we respond to all our calls within 24 hours. And oftentimes these calls will lead to investigations and inspections, and then those can lead to notices of violation for our violators. Now, I want to caution when we talk about odor and such, this is around commercial use, industrial use. When we talk about cannabis, it's a grow houses and dispensaries, not what people do in their neighborhoods. So forgive us for that. So I know we have questions afterward, so I will turn it back over to Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
And it looks good up here too, just if you want to do it here. Okay. Okay, so next up we have Melissa Ramos she's the manager of Advocacy and Clean Air at the American Lung Association in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for everyone who's tuning in online. So as Megan said, my name is Melissa and I am with the American Lung Association. So I'll be talking a little bit about how the Lung Association is involved in air quality work and how air quality impacts our health and the role that wildfire plays in this.
You just need to click in there.
So the American Lung Association is a leading organization working to save lives and improve lung health by preventing lung disease and advocating for some 4 strategic imperatives. So we do championing clean air for all, tobacco cessation, helping families with lung disease, and affordable and quality access to care. So the reason we champion clean air for all is because we know that clean air is essential for healthy lungs. And one of our signature reports is the State of the Air. We recently released our 23rd annual State of the Air report on April 21st. And this is essentially an air quality report card, and it helps individuals and families learn about their local air quality and what they can do to protect themselves and their families. We do this using US quality assured data from EPA. And this year's report looks at data from 2018 to 2020. And using that data, we provide grades to counties and rankings to major metropolitan areas. Either we have most polluted cities list, as well as some of the cleanest cities across the US. Nationally, we found that more than 137 million Americans are breathing in unhealthy air. This is about more than 4 in 10 Americans living in areas where there is poor air quality. We also know that the burden of air pollution is not equally shared. In fact, people of color are 61% more likely to live in a county with a failing air quality grade for either ozone, short-term, or annual particle pollution. And they are 3.6 times as likely than white people to be living in a county with failing grades on all 3 categories of pollutants. And just for reference, our State of the Air report looks at 2 of the most harmful air pollutants, which are ozone and particulate matter. Ozone is more commonly known as smog, and then particle pollution is more commonly known as soot. So rising temperatures associated with climate change contribute to increased ozone and more frequent and intense wildfires which the smoke we see is spreading hundreds of miles. The State of the Air 2022 report analyzes, as I mentioned, the 3 most recent US EPA quality assured data years. So this is 2018, 2019, and 2020. These were among the hottest years on record as the 7th, 3rd, and 2nd hottest years globally. So climate change is a health emergency. We're seeing longer and hotter heat waves, more unhealthy ozone days, more unhealthy particle pollution days, and more extreme wildfires along with storms and flooding. We're seeing longer and stronger allergy seasons and spread of infectious diseases. I'm not sure, but maybe some of you have even experienced when there is poor air quality or we're seeing a lot of the smoke from wildfires, you may develop some sort of sinus infection. And a lot of health professionals are recognizing that, you know, climate change is affecting these health impacts. So this is pretty startling to see, but our state of the air report saw that all but one of the 25 worst cities for short-term particle pollution are in the Western United States. And this is largely because of the impacts of wildfire smoke. And I think right after this, I'll be going over the Las Vegas rankings as well as Reno, which are two of our main metropolitan areas here in the state. But again, it's just important to note that this report saw some of the most significant impacts of particle pollution days. Particle pollution has been linked to lung cancer and in some cases premature death. It comes from a wide range of sources such as coal-fired power plants, industrial boilers, diesel vehicles, wood stoves, and of course, wildfire smoke. The dangers of this is that these particles are so small and invisible to just the natural eye that they can penetrate deep into the lungs and get trapped into our bloodstream. Okay, so to understand the impacts of particle pollution, I just want to go over the air quality rankings that we saw for both Las Vegas and Reno according to our state of the air report. So Las Vegas ranks 11th for the most unhealthy in ozone days. Last year it was ranked 12th. And while we did see fewer unhealthy days of ozone, there were significant, there were other improvements across the country, which is why we still moved up and ranked as 11th most polluted. And the same goes for particle pollution days. Last year, we were actually on the top 25 for most polluted in particles, but there were other states that improved, there were other states that saw more significant increases in particle pollution, which is why we were bumped off the list. However, it is important to know that in this year's report, we saw that Las Vegas had the highest recorded number of unhealthy spikes in particle pollution. And then for Reno, unfortunately, Reno saw increases in both ozone and particle pollution days. And it made the list for top 25 most polluted in both categories. And just again, for reference, last year, Reno was actually 21st for unhealthy particle pollution days. And this year, they're ranked 12th. So that's where we're seeing such a significant jump in those particle pollution impacts from the wildfire smoke. Okay, so now how does all of this impact our health? How is the smoke from wildfires affecting how we're breathing? Well, when we're breathing in air pollution, as I mentioned, it makes it increasingly difficult to breathe. It can cause wheezing, coughing, shortness of breath. For people with underlying respiratory and cardiovascular impacts, it worsens their condition, so it increases asthma attacks. It can cause heart attacks and strokes. It's also been linked to preterm birth and low birth weight. So who is most at risk from air pollution? 94% of Nevadans are currently breathing in unhealthy air. And right here I have the breakdown of these different population numbers in Nevada. And this is on our website if you are interested to see other categories of people at risk. This is on lung.org/SOTA for state of the year. As I mentioned, everyone is at risk from breathing in air pollution, especially when we're during wildfire season. When we walk outside, we're seeing that smoke. It is difficult to breathe. Maybe we'll start coughing just from breathing in a little bit of smoke. And you don't have to have an underlying condition. You could just be a healthy individual and you can still be impacted from the smoke. But there are certain groups that are facing even greater risk, children, because their lungs are still developing. So they also breathe quicker than the older adults. So because they're circulating more air, they're breathing in more of that air, it is more dangerous to them because their lungs are developing. Adults over the age of 65. So seniors and the elderly population are more at risk from breathing in air pollution because their immune system is no longer as strong to fight off any of those impacts. And again, as I mentioned, people with underlying health conditions, it makes them more susceptible to the health harms because of the poor air quality. And then historically, Black and Brown communities have a lot of these underlying health conditions from respiratory, cardiovascular issues, as well as diabetes, and all these underlying health conditions, coupled with the lack of access to care, makes them more vulnerable to experiencing the health harms from air pollution. So it's very important that individuals with asthma or any other lung issues or lung diseases speak with their physician regarding any changes in medication that they may need to cope with the wildfire smoke. Now that we understand the impact that wildfires are having on our health, it's important to see what we can do to stay safe during wildfire season. So before we're starting to see the wildfire season start, it's very important to stay alert on air quality in the area. So if you go on airnow.gov/fires, you'll be able to stay alert and track nearby wildfires that are going on in your area. It's also important to designate a clean room. So this could be looking around your home and seeing what closed off room you would like to designate as a clean room. This just means you'll allow air to circulate and flow throughout that room and just minimize any chance of wildfire smoke getting into that specific room. And then gathering your emergency kit. So this could be food, water, a first aid kit, and again, medication, especially for people who have these underlying conditions. Just make sure that you're alert if you do have to increase your dosage during wildfire season to cope with any of those impacts. And as well as families who have these vulnerable populations in their household to be on alert and be monitoring your family member's symptoms in case of an emergency and knowing when to contact or when to seek out medical help. So during the wildfire that is going on, as long as there is no evacuation order, it's most important to stay indoors with all closed windows and close off everything to make sure no air from outside is coming in, and avoid going outdoors as much as you possibly can. If you do have to go outside, be sure you're wearing an appropriate mask, a filtered mask, to kind of mitigate the impacts of the smoke that you're seeing outside. And again, making sure that you're running the air conditioning on recirculate to avoid outdoor air from getting in. And of course, this should hopefully be obvious, but just don't burn anything indoors. This includes cigarettes, candles, anything that's going to threaten the air quality inside of your home. And then after wildfire has passed, it's very important to avoid all of the dust and soot. So making sure when you do end up going outdoors, to still cover your face with the appropriate mask. And if you have people in your family who have underlying lung issues, they should definitely avoid any of these cleanup activities and just stay alert to know when it is safe to return home or when it is safe to resume normal activities. And one of the tips that we recommend is when you are cleaning up any of the soot that you're seeing around outdoors of your home or even in your home, is make sure you wipe it down with like a wet cloth to avoid any of the particulates from becoming airborne and to prevent breathing those in. And then now I just want to play this video. I think you might have to click the link, but this just kind of goes over some of the things that I just talked about and how you can prepare.
Okay.
I think it's
Now we're in.
I think it's
Okay, wait, let me.
Well, it should work because it's in the app.
Okay, let me open it. Sure. There's a link in your,
it's in the actual presentation.
yeah. It should be there then.
I think you can see it.
Oh, I see it. It's, okay. Why is that not showing up? I'll share my screen. Sorry, pardon our,
And all of this information, we also have a fact sheet available on our website. So on lung.org/wildfires, it has all the information I just mentioned, as well as, again, a fact sheet on how you can protect yourself and your family during that season.
okay. It's, not working. Yeah, there you go. That's what I was going. Just do that.
Okay, yeah, I think it's on that sheet.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Sorry, I know it's just being hidden by the controls up there.
Super short, isn't it?
There we go.
Hospice all trusted women like this. With wildfires becoming more common, it's important to know that smoke can harm your lungs and cause breathing problems for everyone, especially kids, older adults, and people with asthma, lung disease, or other health conditions. How can you keep your lungs safe around wildfire smoke? Unless you need to evacuate, stay inside with your windows and doors shut. If you can, use a HEPA air purifier to filter out harmful particles. If you have to be outside, wear a fitted N95 mask if possible. Always keep an eye on the air quality index. The AQI shows how much pollution is in the air and if it's safe to go outside. It's especially important to prepare if you have lung disease. The American Lung Association encourages anyone living with a chronic lung disease to keep all medications, delivery devices, prescriptions, and insurance cards in one spot so you can evacuate quickly if you need to. If someone in your family uses an oxygen device, notify your utility company so they're aware of the need for priority electricity supply. A portable oxygen concentrator allows you to bring it with you during an evacuation. It can even be plugged into the DC outlet in your car. Visit lung.org to learn more about wildfire smoke and how you can protect yourself, or call the American Lung Association's helpline at 1-800-LUNG-USA to speak to a nurse or respiratory therapist.
Thank you, and now I'll hand it over back to Megan.
Thank you, Melissa. That little clicker. Okay, so Melissa and Kevin both did an amazing job of explaining why wildfire smoke and ozone are so bad for you. So I'm just gonna, I have a few slides about that, but I am gonna skim past it. But just if I forgot to introduce myself, my name is Maggie Kay. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Living with Fire program. Living with Fire program is a multi-agency effort that is managed by the University of Nevada, Reno Extension. I work in the Washington County office, but very happy to be here in the Clark County office to be able to give this presentation. Okay, so this is, I think that Melissa did an amazing, and Kevin did an amazing job of going over this. They're the experts. So I'm just gonna briefly go over this and highlight what is in wildfire smoke, and want to make sure that we kind of bring home the particulate matter, fine particulate matter, which is what we like to educate folks about, because it's those small particles that Melissa and Kevin talked about that can get into your lungs and your bloodstream. Okay. Something to keep in mind is that wildfire smoke is not all the same. It depends on what's consumed in the wildfire. So that could be vegetation, that could be homes, that could be cars. So the particulate matter in wildfire smoke is going to vary depending on the wildfire. It's going to vary depending on the wildfire's temperature. In the picture to the right, that's a very hot wildfire. That's putting out a lot of volume of smoke. So if it's a fully involved wildfire, it's going to be releasing a lot of smoke. If it's a smoldering wildfire, it's going to be releasing not as much smoke. And then the last thing that consider with what's in wildfire smoke, you guys can't see here, I'm sorry. I don't know how to hide these controls. but it's wind and wind direction. So how far it's taking the wildfire smoke, Kevin will be more of an expert on that. So we'll open it up to questions after that. And again, why should you be concerned about wildfire smoke? That fine particulate matter that Melissa talked about, anything under 2.5 microns can get into your bloodstream, cause a lot of problems, especially if you have pre-existing conditions. I'm going to kind of gloss over this because I feel like they cover it really well. These microscopic particles can enter your eyes, be inhaled into your respiratory system, and cause any of these conditions. So they can cause runny nose, coughing, wheezing, and if you already have any chronic respiratory issues, they can exacerbate them, make them worse. So folks with asthma. Okay, so now we're gonna go into what I feel like I'm more confident in talking about, which is actually protecting yourself from wildfire smoke. And Melissa kind of highlighted a few of the things. We're going to go a little more in depth into these. So during wildfire smoke events, it's really important to monitor air quality and wait for pockets of less smoky air before you go outside. So if possible, if you guys can wait to walk your dog or whatever you need to go outside, monitor air quality. If you see that it's good, then go for it. If you see it's not great, maybe skip it and wait till later. Again, you can view the latest AQI air quality numbers at airnow.gov, and that site that Melissa mentioned, fireairnow.gov. When wildfire happens, all of the smoke events are going to be monitored on this side. So it's a really great one to bookmark. And it'll also kind of help folks understand, like, if there's no wildfires directly in the area, like where's the smoke coming from? You might be able to get a sense of that on fires. So staying safe indoors during smoke events, there are some things to consider. You want to reduce or stop your outdoor activity if possible. Keep windows and doors closed, and keep your air conditioner on recirculation mode. Make sure it's not pulling any of that outside air into your home. A lot of HVAC systems, most HVAC systems already operate in that recirculate mode, but if you're not sure, call your HVAC specialist and make sure that you're not pulling in unhealthy air from outside. Like Melissa said, don't cook and don't fry food, don't burn anything indoors, don't smoke, don't use aerosols, all of that stuff. You want to keep your indoor air clean. Some things to keep in mind with your home ventilation system during smoke events. Like I mentioned, if you have a typical HVAC system like the one pictured, you want to make sure it's serviced. You want to make sure that it's in recirculate mode. Swamp coolers pull air from outside in. So you want to turn those off. I know that in summertime, especially down here, it's kind of like you're choosing between two unhealthy situations. Like, are you going to be hot in 100-degree weather, or are you going to be inhaling an unhealthy air? So, like, we understand a lot of these decisions, there's a lot of factors involved, but if possible, turn off your swamp cooler during smoke events and try to keep that unhealthy air outside. You can filter the air inside your home. I'm not an expert on HVAC systems, so I'm not sure, I can't tell you specifics, but we do know that the rating on air filters, the MERV rating, anything MERV 13 or above can help reduce that fine particulate matter. I have I've created a sort of DIY system, which we'll talk about later. I created a DIY filter for my house. But you can buy these filters and just kind of plop them into your vents in your house. They do make your HVAC system work a little harder. I do know that. Hopefully you guys are picking up the ambulance coming back. So these are not filters you want to keep on year round necessarily, because that might add some extra stress to your HVAC system. So make sure you're talking to your whoever services your air conditioning unit. And then if you lack air conditioning, closing the windows during hot weather can be unsafe, so consider staying elsewhere. We understand that this is also not an option for a lot of people, but with these smoke events becoming longer, we recommend kind of like trying to be proactive and prepare and see if that is an option, if you have anyone you can possibly stay with. Our presentation got all weird, but how to create a clean room. Melissa mentioned that during smoke events, if you can create a room, if you're not able to filter all the air in your home, if you're like me, you live in a 100-year-old house and you don't have an air conditioning unit, and also your windows and doors leak air, you want to like choose an interior room in your house that at least you can seal up, get an air filter in there, and you want it to be big enough for everyone in your house to be able to get in there and be safe during these smoke events. You can use a portable air cleaner or purifier, but some of these produce ozone, which I just became aware of. So when you're buying an air filter, you want to do your research and make sure that you're not buying any that produce ozone. That might, I think, because people are becoming more aware of that, it might be becoming less of an issue. But I became aware of that when I was shopping for my air filter, so I tried to talk about it. And then if you lack a portable air filter, you can't afford one because I know that they can be a little pricey. You can make one, and so this is what I made for my house last year. I live in Reno, and if you remember Melissa's presentation, we had really bad air quality last summer because of wildfire smoke. We had 30 days in a row of poor air quality. It got really intense, and I have a new kid. I was just spending money on daycare. I didn't have a ton of money at the time to try to get an air filter, so I made one. I just took one of those I bought a MERV 13 air filter from Home Depot, and I just duct taped it to the back of my box fan, and so it was pulling the air through the filter. It's a short-term solution, but it was very effective, and it cost. I already had the box fan. The filter was like $15, $20, so it's a great workaround if filters are cost prohibitive for you. If you must stay outdoors, here are some tips for protecting yourself from smoke, or if you just, for your mental health, need to go outdoors. But we know a lot of folks work outside, so you want to stay hydrated. If you, which again, I'm not the expert, Melissa will be the expert on this one, but if your airway is lubricated, you're going to be able to breathe better. So that's going to hopefully not exacerbate any sort of pre-existing respiratory conditions. You want to use proper respirators if you're going to use a respirator, and you want to use NIOSH N95 or P100 respirators. And I think I skipped over the slide where we talked about that, but we all have become very familiar with respirators because of the pandemic. N95 respirators, not all of them are the same. These NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, if it has that stamp of approval, then it's going to be the ones that can filter fine particulate matter. So it might say N95, but if it doesn't say NIOSH N95, then it's not going to be as effective in filtering that particulate matter. If possible, reduce strenuous activities and take frequent breaks indoors to limit the amount of smoke inhaled. So when you're exercising, you're just inhaling more air, you're breathing more, so you're going to be getting more unhealthy air in your system. And then again, always check that air quality and try to wait for a pocket of healthy air before you go outside. While you're driving, some tips for reducing the health impacts of wildfire smoke: close all your windows and vents in your car and get your air conditioning to circulate mode, and then also change your filters. And yeah, those are just that. So some other considerations when protecting yourself from wildfire smoke, and this is kind of about those health considerations that we've already mentioned. If you have asthma, you want to make sure that you are following your asthma management plan. Do you have heart or lung disease? You want to make sure you're checking in with your doctor for any specific recommendations for you during smoke events, and you want to make sure you're following And then always have a 5-day supply of medication on hand. If the smoke gets really bad and you're not able to leave your house for a few days, you want to make sure that you don't have to pop out to the pharmacy and get your medications. This is actually a really great preparedness tip that we always recommend, not just for smoke events, but for any emergency. During emergencies can be stressful, and especially wildfire evacuations, for example. If you don't have that on you, it's very difficult to get your prescriptions going if you're away from your house. And then use those NIOSH approved N95 or P100 respirators that I was talking about earlier. Okay, so here's that slide that I mentioned, the notes about respirators. So these respirators can be fit tested. I've never done it, but I feel like we should mention it. It is an option if you're able to find someone to fit test it. Basically, they put it around your face and they measure how much air is escaping the mask to make sure it's fitting you correctly. I found out a really cool hack. Someone told me about this. If you use an essential oil, so basically put on your mask, take a really strong smelling essential oil, release it into the air. If you smell the essential oil, then you're getting particulate matter into the mask. So cinnamon, something like that, something that's very strong. So that's kind of a DIY way of fit testing your own mask. These respirators are not designed for children or people with beards, for obvious reasons. Sorry, Kevin. And then this is sort of disappointing, but cloth and surgical face coverings that we have all become very familiar with. They do not protect you from ozone or fine particulate matter. So just keep that in mind. Stock up on those N95 masks for fire season. If you guys want some more guidance on how to use these respirators, we created a little bit.ly. It's just bit.ly/N95 how to, and that'll take you to a nice little fact sheet on how to use your respirator. And then finally, all of this information, we worked closely with the Washoe County District of Health on creating this fact sheet. So all of this information is a new fact sheet, living with smoke, how to be prepared for smoke exposure, which is out there for folks in the room. And for folks online, go ahead and follow that link. And that's all I have. So I want to thank Kevin and Melissa for your presentations, and wondering if anybody online has, if you have any questions, we'll go to do a little Q&A. And if there aren't any questions online, then we'll say goodbye and end a little early. Are there any questions on there? Okay, so I just want to thank the folks on Zoom for joining us. And I want to thank everyone at Extension and Melissa and Kevin. And since we have kind of a small group, if you have a question, now's your chance. So did we get any? Okay. Well, then I think does anybody here have any questions? Sheila, Molly? No? Okay. Then I think we're gonna end the meeting. Thanks for joining. All of this will be available in a few weeks' time, because it takes me a while to get the captions and everything, but we're gonna put this on our YouTube channel as a resource for folks, so they could reference it. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.